I would like to kindly and cordially invite Professor Ranmuthugala to give presentation.
Thanks for the introduction, Professor. Given the timing, I will leave it with the SSC, then go straight into the topic. As you said, the main area that I'm going to talk about is underwater vapors, or the hydrodynamics of it. You find that most of although I talk about underwater vapors, most of the stuff I'll be talking about is submarines. That's what I like. That's what I enjoy doing. But the theory that I'm talking about, the practice, the application is very similar. It's a small thing. So I don't think you're going to run off and buy a submarine tomorrow. It's really unlikely. But the concepts are very, very similar. So they would learn. So, and in the underwater space, you get a number of different platforms that are used. And on one side, you get submarines that are large, and they can be very, very large. Large submarine can be much bigger than this straw in size. So you can see how large they can be. On the other side, there are underwater vehicles that are autonomous, controlled by guided, and quite intelligent. So there's a raft of vehicles that we are trying to deal with, and this is getting more and more important. If you look at the current world, there's a number of younger navies or smaller navies that are by small underwater vehicles or even small submarines because it projects power and it's a deterrent that can be used. You don't have to launch a submarine. You can keep them in a pen, nobody will come after you because they don't know where the submarine is. So it's a very important weapon that can be used. So let's see what are the requirements, and there's a whole bundle there. I'm not an expert in most of them. My area is my area of expertise is at the bottom, where we're talking about hydrodynamics. But there's a lot more. There's the Q states, there's structural integrity, there's stealth, payload, sensors, and of course cost. All this. Submarine mainly a submarine is one of the most difficult structures to build. It's much more harder to build one of them than to build a spacecraft. Although you might not agree with me, having seen the last explosion on TV, where they just blew up one of their spaceships. But it's a very, very difficult structure to build. So I'm going to talk more from the hydrodynamic and hydrostatic area, and I'll hopefully give you some insight on the things that need to be taken into consideration and what we have taken into consideration in building this. So the first one is resistance, because you want to have submarine that makes the least number of noise, or keeps in submarine, I should say, underwater vehicle, that make the least amount of noise and very efficient. So I just want to show you some of the shapes that has been there in the submarine field. Now, right at the top is a German submarine from the Second World War, and if you look at it, it looks like a boat. It looked like a boat because that's what they were. They sailed on the top, and once in a way they went down and nasty things, and then they came up again. Right, so that was the shape. They spent all their time on the sea, on the surface. Later on, they started, after the 50s, the submarines started going and spending longer periods of time on the water, which is where they should be. And you find the shape changed. They become like a teardrop, as you can see that shape. And that's probably the most accurate shape that you want. You want to have a shape like a teardrop that will give you least resistance. Unfortunately, when you have a teardrop shape, you can't put things in it. There are people, like the Navy, that want to put things into submarines. The designers like me get extremely cheesed off because we like to have that shape. But anyway, so you end up with, that's our Australian submarine that we have in Collins, is like a cigar. It's like a tube, and there's a lot of stuff inside it. It's not hydrodynamically very good, but it's not too bad either. So it's trying to get a compromise between. And for those who have done engineering, and I see most of you are, there are a number of resistances that we have to look into. So on an underwater vehicle, we have to look at frictional resistance, we have to look at the shape resistance, and you also have to look at things like wave making. On a ship, you're always going to have wave making, because you're going to see the surface and wave. On a submarine, once in a way we have wave making. So most of the time, the submarine is built to be on the water and away from waves. But in the rare occasion where it is near the surface, or on the surface, then we have to start worrying about waves. And that dominates the resistance. That's one of the things that you have to take into consideration. It's not so important for big navies that have big submarines because they just go down and stay down. But smaller ones, except if you have an underwater vehicle, it will be in the near surface area. So it's something that has to be taken into account. So just want to show, I'm not going to spend too much time on the technical side, but you all know about Reynolds numbers and proof numbers. Most of you are engineers here or engineering students, so you will know about that. There are different numbers that we have to take into account when we build submarines. So there's ships like skin friction, which are Reynolds, and other ones are proof. So that's the ideal shape. And that submarine there at the bottom, which is called the Albacore, was the ideal shape. Somebody said, let's decide the best shape, and that top teardrop, perfect. And that's the shape that we strive to build. And you also don't like to put things on top of it. You don't like sails and things and all those sort of things. They all cause problems. That's the shape you want to go for. And if you look at it, that's the sort of look at it. So that's, if you look at the length to diameter ratio as well, you want to get it somewhere around 7.5. That's the sort of 6, 7.5. That's the sort of thing you want to get it. Unfortunately, when you build one, you will end up with a much longer thing. You got to construct it. You can't construct it in one shot. So what they do is they construct rings and they fix the rings together. So you construct the ring inside the shape, so you can't make it too big. So all this constraints stop you getting the ideal size you want. And the other thing is the front end of the submarine itself. I showed you the earlier shape. I wanted to have a nice smooth shape. In reality, I can't do that. And same with this is very similar to an underboard vehicle. This is the reverse that most navies use. You'll find it's a blunt front. It's blunt because that's where your sensors are. Your forward-looking sensors are all there. Whether it's an underboard vehicle or whether it's a submarine, you have your passive sonars all in front. If you have turbulent water, and you know what turbulent water is, right? If you have turbulent water, your sensors are not very effective. So you want to have laminar. To create laminar flow, you have to have very broad, large area there. So you try to have laminar in the front end and turbulence in the back end. So that's the sort of shape that you're trying to build the front end. And there is I guess, shown you some resistant curves for different submarine shapes. That's a teardrop, where you can see how low it is. That's sort of an idealized conventional submarine, and that is for a new nuclear submarine shape. You can see how the resistance goes up, because they cram a lot more things into that. That is here. Changes the resistance. And then, having gone through all those problems, and somebody else comes and fixes all these things on it. And that's the same with an AUV. If you take an AUV, you build a nice autonomous vehicle, which is smooth, and then they go and check all these funny chemicals that signal it, and sensors, mass, sails. That's generally called sails. Right? We call it if it's an underwater vehicle. Otherwise, all that's going to add resistance to the problem. So you'd have, generally, this is what we find. The metal surface goes up by about 10%. The drag goes up by about 20%. So when you're trying to design something that is as smooth as possible. But in reality, because of operational requirements, we end up putting on a lot more effect. Then we have scaling. You design it for a certain speed. That's fine for the body. But the appendages are running at a much smaller Reynolds number because of the scaling effect. So you have those issues. And then you have flow angles that come in as they go up and down. So there are a number of issues that you have to take. I just wanted to show you how the flow goes past an aperture. That's computational stuff that we do. And it's something you have to do if you're actually deciding underwater vehicle. This is a path that takes a lot of time. Run like that. Just our interest, computation run like that could take about 3 or 4 weeks of computational power just to run it. So it's a lot of energy you need. But it shows you what kind of flow is coming behind that. How hard it is to. So if I can get rid of that and have a smooth hull, voila, I've got a beautiful shape. But unfortunately, as I said, that's not like here. There's another couple of examples. Again, I have shown a submarine, but it's no different from a UV. If your sail changes, your the size of the chain changes, you get different sort of vortices. So you want to try to bring them smaller and possible. So you'll see, if you look at Wikipedia is a good place to look at it, so pictures of that. If you look at it for all the submarines, you'll find the new submarines all have small, sort of stubby kind of sails. There's a whole bunch of large sails. And same with an AUV. Here's an example. This is a problem that we have to deal with. So we have a vehicle called that we use the Remus, which is the most famous AUV used by the navies. It's used by the US Navy a lot, but we use it as well. We bought it in that shape, And they gave us a drag coefficient and said this is what it was. And when we did some testing, and the testing we did, we found that wasn't the case, and we nearly caused international issue by telling us that the drag coefficient is wrong. The reason was this: they worked it on that. That was the original maker. And then, as I said, as the years progressed, people started putting on things. And you look at that, and you look at that. There's a big difference in the shape. So you've got to do new experiments or new computation to find out how that variation has affected the vehicle. So, they started off with something like 0.26, we ended up with something like 0.55. So you can see double the drag of the vehicle. And the other issue is submarine salmon, especially countries like us who run conventional, again similar on AUVs, they can't go for long peak. They have to come every 4 or 5 days, they have to come and snort. So they'll come up and you can see the waves. You can see it from distance, you can see the waves. That's like a ship on the surface. This wave is causing resistance, huge resistance. Can be about 40-50% of the resistance can come because of this simple wave. So you design, or I design, or somebody designed this thing to be down deep here. And if it's going to spend all its time up here, you have a problem. Swedish, for example, there are submarines all operate in this region, so you don't have to import it, right? So you have that. So your resistance has to be very, very high because of the wave making. So it's again something that has to be taken into effect. And you can see the curves there. We have done some experimental work. You can see the resistance curves. They have humps as they go. That's because of the waves. As the waves. If you go deep, you can do something like that. Just like that. These humps here, and produce a 3D graph of the same thing. You can see as it gets deep. You can see that's when it's deep. It's nice smooth curve. There it's shallow, and you can see the humps. So you suddenly find your power of the submarine is not good enough. You can't go. You won't move. Because you're suddenly got this extra resistance. And it's only at a certain speed. It's only between that speed there. So there's a lot of experimental work that has to be done. How are we going for time? Oh God. 9 more minutes. Yeah. The other issue that you have is, as all of you have done only nutrition water in school, right? Even the non-engineers have done. So as you go there, you get between the water and the surface, you get a high speed of flow because of this restriction. You get low pressure, and that submarine gets sucked up, or the EV gets sucked up. If you're in a submarine, that's a serious problem because you come to the surface. Come to the surface, other people do it continuously, right? So you don't want to come to the surface. So you have those issues. On the other hand, if you try to move away, because you're ballasted and you're trying to move away, suddenly you lose that suction and you go down. Just to give you an idea, most underwater vehicles, large ones like submarines, at about 600 meters they become big and they crash. So you don't want to go too deep. AUVs are worse, right? They will be a lot less before they start crashing. So you need to be in a situation where you don't over-correct yourself for that sort of thing. The wake profile from the afterbody, because you have the afterbody there with the prop at the end. I'll show you some of the turbulence that's coming through that, and you can see that, you can see the turbulence coming, how much of the that comes from the turbulence. The prop design is a big issue. They cavitate a lot, especially close to the surface, they cavitate. That's just showing the way of water coming through the prop, different speeds because of the fins and so on. And the new things that are coming in is things called the pump jet. I know you guys in Sri Lanka do a lot of stuff with water jets, but pump jets are slightly different. They have a stator and a rotor. It's like a gas turbine. People like it's like a gas turbine, not fitted onto the water vehicle. So torpedoes use this a lot, and even the AUVs are not using it. High thrust, very high thrust. They are coming into that area. The other issue is you are going to get lateral control of your submarine itself or vehicle itself. I just wanted to show you this one here. Is to model this, what they do is they develop equations. That's a set of equations. I don't want you to memorize that, so it's not and that's a simplified version of it. It's a bit bigger than that. But what we have to do is all of these have coefficients. So we've got to calculate those coefficients. Now how we calculate the coefficients is either experimentally or through computation. I just wanted to show you some that we do. So one way that we do it is captive pointers. So we have towing tanks. Our one is not very big, it's only about 100 meters, but there are ones that go 500 meters in length, so they're quite long. And what we do is we run like the vehicle there on the water at different angles, and we can calculate coefficients and drag and so on. And with a bit of mathematics, you can work out all these coefficients. The other one is the rotating arm. So what you have is a huge, this one is about 60 meters, I think. Sorry, 39.6 meters, given in feet, being 100 meters. But it's a huge thing that goes round and round, and you have the other one vehicle fitted there. That's what the US Navy uses in counter-up. Same what we use, we don't give them on that. And that gives you the coefficient as well. This is another one where we have planar motion mechanisms. What happens in that is the object is juggled around, or jiggled around, whatever you want to call it, as it goes. So that gives you coefficient, parallel coefficient. We have horizontal one, around there is a vertical one. That one we have a picture of how we operate it. Let's see. The last one is a free swimming model, where our model runs, is about 6 meter model that runs freely. But I just wanted to show you the computational one. This is where computation is getting very powerful. In short, it's not taking too long. We can use CFD to model this. And here is one that we have been doing at the moment, where we have a free swimming model of a submarine that can run, and we can get the same coefficient. Only problem with numerical stuff is it's colorful, it gives you nice answers, but we don't know it's right. So to find out whether it's right, you need to run some experimental stuff, and that gives you correlation. So just to show you that, here I go to details, this one. So that's computation of the, remember that wriggle thing I told you about the planar motion mechanism? That's a computational one. So I can validate that using my experimental stuff, and then I can change the body and give whatever I want. Right? The only downside is these takes a long time to run computationally as well, and that will take about a week to run. What I'm going to do is, how my time running to end with it? 5 minutes. So what I'm going to choose but I just wanted to show you that earlier still of this submarine or an AUV or whatever you want to call it, that is modeling of it. So we can actually model it and run the thing and then experimentally balance it. So that's a computational run of a generic submarine, which is unclassified, so I can show you. That would have run for about 3 months together. So you have to remember, just because you have a computer, you're not going to get a solution. A, the solution can be wrong. B, you'll be waiting a long time to get the right answer. So it is just want to say, experiments are not dead. Experiments are there. Computation is just another tool that helps you to get the stuff. But you can see, we can find out the flow profiles from that. And there's another one here, that's the prop itself, and you can see the waves coming, acceleration fast because of this barbillers. And you can also things like blade loading, you can find out blade loading, you want to know harmonics of blade loading. Aeronautics, you can actually, as a line of that, you can see that as the prop goes down, I think the blade loading on that. So there's a lot of things computation you can achieve, but you can't guarantee this unless you have experimental work to show that it works. So given that I'm running out of time on this, I just wanted to say there's a few other things. The people who have, I know there are cadets and architects and so on here who have done a lot of surface stuff. When you do surface stuff, you worry about the center of pressure and the center of gravity. I'm sure you want to know. I don't know what they use in aviation, probably very similar. Center of pressure, maybe? Center of pressure? Any aviation people? Center of pressure. Anyway. When you are underwater, you can't just use center of gravity and center of pressure. There are other things that you have to use. Things like pivot point. The pivot point is where when the submarine or thing operates, there's a certain point where you have no velocity. Right? And that has to be found. You've got to actually find it out. It's about a third of a distance. And you've got to find it. So because of this, what happens is when a submarine rotates, you can get a force on that which causes the submarine to tilt. But if you put the sail right on the pivot point, then the velocity there is quite small, isn't it? So the effect on that is low. It will be another effect issue we have because of the sail. This is why I don't like sails. So as a method, but people who use them have it. Right? This is the problem, because as the submarine is at an angle or the AGV is at an angle, you got a vortex coming. You know, tip vortices, all the guys know tip vortices that come out of the tip of the plane or wing. That comes out, and what that does is you see the two vortices coming from the body, they interact with it. They interact with them, and then they cause rotation around this body, which causes the back of the vehicle to tilt. So you suddenly find the vehicle turning and tipping it back. So you go straight through the surface. Right. Permit.
Yeah.
So that's it. I don't need but I just want to say, so when you turn, you've got to compensate for that sort of issue. So I'm not going to go through the rest. It's all in the rest is the theory. Just do my conclusion and finish it off. So basically, what I want to say is, when you are designing an underwater vehicle, be it an AUV or be it a submarine or whatever, you have to compromise between the hydrodynamics and the operational requirements. You can't have one over the other. Right? And in many cases, the operational requirements take over and you get a platform that is useless. You don't believe me, read up about the Spanish submarine, 70 tons too heavy and it's not going to go very far. You got to understand the hydrodynamics of the hull and the appendages. You got to be able to characterize it, whether it's using computation or whether it's using experiment. You got to understand how it works, look at statics and dynamics, and use a combination of that to get more. So that should finish it off. That's right here.
Thank you, Professor Ranmuthugala. Thanks for speaking on the time schedule. Now the floor is open for questions. We can have maximum 3 questions, like depending on. Just try to focus on the topics.
And easy questions as well.
Easy questions. Yeah. Easy question first and the question later. Yeah, please. Yeah.
One of the greatest challenges in this type of application is establishing the surveillance model.
Yes.
And also, how do you select and establish the surveillance model in this kind of?
It's a lot of trouble, basically. So it depends on what you do. You know that CFD simulations I showed, that's not RANs, that's LES. That's just subgrid models. But if you're using RANs, which is what we use for the other stuff like the free swimming models, you go into the literature and see what they have used for that type of data. And then you got to just try it out and see. You got to try out, and you probably use what, just the way you do grid independence or something like that, you would do an independence for the turbulence models. So try the different types of turbulence models, and you'll find some will suit that particular thing better than the others better. And that's why you need to experiment with data, not only for grid validation and other things, but also for turbulence model validation. The issue you have with LES is you don't have turbulence models, so you're really not sure how it's going to go right or wrong. So you try to then make your mesh on the branch models and then read out the LES. But it's an art form more than a thing. You just got to follow a step sequence of process, and it takes a long time. So that's why I said, even it's like an experiment. In an experiment, you can't just take the experiment, chuck it in the water, and hope you get an answer. You will, but it won't work. Right? Same with CFD. You've got to take the process of, I'll build a small model, I'll try these turbulence models, I'll try different build intensities, and try them and see where you start with the convergence and so there's no simple answer. And the answer that will fit one model might not fit another one. And then as soon as you find the best model you think, somebody else decides a new model, and then you'll try that. I don't know if I answered your question much.
Thank you. Any other question? I would just request to introduce yourself, name and affiliation, division or whatever, with the question, so it can be recorded. Then, any other question?
I'm Professor Dev Ranmuthugala, and I'm a marine engineering student for BTech Medicine. In your presentation, you highlighted the main problem about having the computational aspect as well as the practical aspect, the experimental aspect, and integrating it both in the research. So normally, as rightfully mentioned, you have the computational method which you get a lot of colors and numbers and you get it right. But when you
don't get it right, you get it.
Yes, you get it. As mentioned, you don't know whether it's right or wrong until you experiment on it. Yeah. So basically, based on your experience, what would you suggest having the computational method as well as the experimentation method to have the best outcome? I know there won't be a clear-cut ratio saying it's 80% or 20% or whatever, but still to get a research done and get a proper answers or the best answers that we can for those problems that Sir mentioned, what would be sort of the method to integrate both the computational as well as the practical aspect of it?
So before I answer that one directly, I just want to add that you said correctly that the computational stuff is not always correct, or won't be correct as well anyway. Neither is the experiment. So the experiment will have uncertainties as well. That's why you put uncertainty bars in your results. Because what the best way to do it both, I know it's expensive and time consuming, is to do both together. So you use some computational work first to get an idea of what your experimental needs to be done, needs to be targeted. And then you do your experimental based on your, and then when you start getting experimental results, you match them against your numerical results as and when it happens to see are we say ballpark or not. Right? If you're way off, then you know something's wrong somewhere. You stop. You don't waste time running an experiment that you don't know is kosher. So you run that, and then as you build up a set of experimental data, then you can refine your numerical model to start getting close to this. The third thing that you didn't mention that is also important is the literature. If you're designing something, even under submarines, there are stuff on in the field literature that you can get, like the generic submarine I showed. You won't get classified stuff, but you get generic stuff. Get information from them and see what they did, like those models that you mentioned. See what they did. What are their results? See whether you can match them. If you can match them, then there's a good chance that you are on. So the answer is you got to try both. It takes time and money. Yeah.
Thank you.
One last question. Question from the chair.
Oh, this is not the hard one.
What would be the worst case design consideration as far as the solicitations are concerned for the design? The worst case for the design, with reference to maybe the climatic effect or
for this kind of design?
Yeah.
From my point of view, it is the client, because the client keeps coming and telling you
Right.
different things. But from a practical issue, we have is mainly depth. It's the depth and the hydrodynamic effects that we get to, because we operate within a very limited 600, 700 meters. So if you take an aircraft that you fly, that's you need to do 11 kilometers without any problem. Right? So we have only 600, 700 meters, so we have a very small area that we are operating. So we have to be very careful with its balancing, with its controls and so on to retain within that. So that's probably the hardest bit that we get, because anything below 700 meters will be crashed. So that's it.
Right.
All right.
Okay. So with that, we will conclude this presentation. And once again, Professor Ranmuthugala, thanks for your presentation and explanations given to these questions. And let us express our appreciation to Professor Ranmuthugala with a round of applause.